Phyllis never intended to eavesdrop, but the moment she heard Billy's laughter drift through the partially ajar door, curiosity and dread conspired to pull her forward. She had always known Billy capable of secrets, his impulsive charm often masking schemes that left collateral damage in their wake, but tonight felt different. Sally had coaxed him away under the pretense of a new joint project, a special performance she insisted needed both of their talents. Phyllis watched from the shadows as Billy handed off his phone before following Sally into the studio suite. Heart pounding, she slipped behind the plush leather chair and snatched up the neglected device. With trembling fingers, she unlocked the screen and the text preview that appeared made her blood run cold. Dumas. The name glowed ominously atop a thread of messages that appeared more furtive than flirtatious, and far more threatening than friendly. A shiver crept down her spine as she scrolled through Billy's last exchanges. Polite inquiries gave way to terse confirmations, each response punctuated by suspicions so grave she could scarcely believe her eyes. What had been discussed here that would send her heart into a panic, and why was Billy so inscrutable when he'd always worn his emotions on his sleeve? What had Dumas promised Billy to warrant such clandestine urgency? Throughout the years, Phyllis had tangled with more than one enemy of the Newmans, but none carried the weight of personal vendetta like this mysterious Dumas. She remembered whispers of his arrival in Genoa City, a shadowy figure with a penchant for corporate sabotage, an inheritance snag embroiled in whispered allegations of fraud and betrayal. If Dumas had extended an offer to Billy, perhaps a chance to expose Victor's vulnerabilities, or leverage against the Chancellor conglomerate. It would explain the lines of worry etched across Billy's youthful face in the messages. He had always craved his own identity, separate from the imposing Newman legacy, yet this felt dangerously close to betrayal. Phyllis felt an ache of jealousy mixed with anger, jealousy that Billy might seek validation from this new ally rather than her, and anger at his cavalier willingness to trade family loyalty for whatever promise Dumas dangled before him. Yet why was Dumas so fixated on the Newmans? Revenge, Phyllis guessed, ancient grudges that stretched back to business deals gone sour, fortunes lost in offshore accounts, secrets buried beneath layers of corporate legalese. Perhaps Dumas believed Victor or Nikki had wronged him or his family, and in his twisted calculus, Billy represented the perfect pawn, naive enough to be seduced by promises of quick success, powerful enough to inflict real harm on the Newman empire. Phyllis's mind raced with possible scenarios. Had Billy agreed to leak sensitive financial documents to Dumas? Was he siphoning funds into shell corporations? Or worse, had he been coerced by threats against someone he cared about, Sally, maybe, or an old friend? The message timestamps indicated something urgent brewing. Dumas's last line read, "Tonight. Be ready. We move forward at midnight." Phyllis's pulse hammered. Midnight was only hours away. She knew what she had to do. If she acted too soon, she risked exposing her own intrusion. If she waited, she might be too late to prevent a catastrophic betrayal. Instinct told her the truth lay not only in Billy's responses but in Dumas's motivations. What rancor fueled this man's hatred? Was it purely financial, a vendetta born of corporate malfeasance? Or was there a more personal wound, an affair, an insult, a tragic loss inflicted by the Newmans' ruthless pursuit of success? Phyllis imagined Dumas in a dimly lit office, papers strewn across his desk, eyes burning with resentment as he plotted the downfall of the family that had overshadowed him for so long. Perhaps he blamed Victor for a broken promise, a contribution to a charity that never materialized, a business partnership that collapsed, leaving him destitute. Whatever the root cause, Dumas had chosen Billy as his instrument, and the innocent facade of Sally's project was nothing but a smokescreen for a scheme that could shake Genoa City to its core. Phyllis's breath hitched as she pocketed the phone and retreated into the night, mind racing with plans to intercept Billy before midnight struck. She would confront him, of course, demand answers, force him to choose sides. But deeper down, a darker impulse took hold. If Billy planned to betray Victor, perhaps Phyllis could use that knowledge to her advantage. She could expose Dumas's plan at the perfect moment, emerging as the family's savior rather than a meddling worm. The thought sent a thrill through her chest. Yet practically, Phyllis knew the path ahead would be treacherous. Billy might feel betrayed by her intrusion. Dumas would not hesitate to eliminate any obstacles, even if it meant turning his wrath on her. The stakes had never been higher, and as Phyllis slipped away into the shadows, she knew that the balance of power in Genoa City was about to shift, and that only those with the sharpest instincts and the coldest hearts would survive the fallout. Phyllis settled into a sleek leather banquette at Society, the artfully lit bistro where power players from every corner of Genoa City gathered beneath the vaulted ceilings and brushed steel accents. She had claimed a table ostensibly to gather her thoughts, but her true intention was far more personal. Across the room, Billy and Sally leaned close over a candlelit dessert plate, their quiet laughter mingling with the soft strains of piano music. Phyllis's pulse thrummed in her ears as she recognized the telltale inflection in Billy's voice, a conspiratorial tone she knew only too well. He was plotting, and the plot involved Dumas, that shadowy figure with a calculated grudge against the Newman legacy. Eyes narrowed, Phyllis watched as Billy outlined the next phase of his secret alliance. He spoke of Dumas not as an adversary but as a resource, a tool to enact vengeance on Victor Newman, to pull back the curtain on the Empire's darkest secrets. Sally, ever the eager provocateur, had urged him on, convinced that the thrill of corporate subterfuge would cement her own standing among Genoa City's elite. Phyllis allowed herself to smile inwardly. She had anticipated this move from Billy ever since whispers of Dumas's arrival had begun circulating like a poison gas. Yet hearing the plan spoken so unabashedly, knowing that her own son would stoop to such duplicitous depths, brought a fierce heat to her cheeks. She rose from the table as Billy and Sally stood to leave. Their steps fell in time with the murmur of guests around them, but Phyllis followed quietly, a strategic distance behind. She watched them slip into a private side corridor near the valet entrance, and in that moment she seized her chance. Billy had absent-mindedly set his phone atop the napkin beside his plate, its screen illuminated by the glow of incoming notifications. Without hesitation, Phyllis reached forward, her fingers brushing the steel tabletop before curling around the device. In the hush of adrenaline, she pressed a single thumb against the fingerprint sensor, and in that instant, she was inside Billy's world of encrypted messages. The headlines in that text thread were stark: promises of financial leverage, assurances of eroding Victor's defenses, and mention of Phase 2 at midnight. Line after line, Billy and Dumas negotiated the logistics of corporate espionage, trading carefully coded language about shifting shares, planted leaks to the press, and clandestine meetings in unmarked offices. Phyllis felt the ground shift beneath her. This was no idle rebellion. This was a full-scale assault on the man who had built Newman Enterprises from the ground up, the man who was her husband, her son's father, and the target of a vendetta as old and bitter as any Genoa City scandal. Her first instinct was to retreat, to process the betrayal in private. But instead, she pocketed the phone and slipped back into the main dining room. As destiny would have it, Sally and Billy emerged from the corridor just as she crossed the entrance threshold. Their eyes locked on her, fear and defiance sparring in Billy's gaze, contempt and wounded pride on Sally's lips. Phyllis's lips curled into a cold smile as she stepped forward, phone in hand. "Eavesdropping, Phyllis?" Billy drawled, though his voice wavered. "You were always so sly." Phyllis let the accusation hang between them as she slid onto the barstool beside Sally, her posture calm and regal. "I heard everything," she said softly. "Your plan to exploit Dumas's hatred of Victor, the promise to tear down your own father's empire." Her words landed like stones. "Tell me, Billy, what does Dumas offer you that a simple conversation with your mother could not?" Billy's face hardened, betrayal etched into every line. "You don't understand her, Phyllis. You never did." "Oh, I understand her perfectly," Phyllis replied, her voice a smooth whisper that carried across the lacquered surface of the bar. "She needed to see that you, your own son, can maneuver her into believing you deserve her trust. You wanted me out of the picture, didn't you?" You and Sally conspired to seize my spotlight, undermine my role in this family. Sally's cheeks flushed with anger. This is about you? You're the one who's been clawing at anything that moves, trying to stay relevant. This is bigger than your petty games. Phyllis laughed, a bitter, controlled sound. My games? Everything I've done has been for this family. Everything you two are doing is a betrayal. She leaned closer, the frigid daylight of her conviction illuminating her eyes. And mark my words, Billy, your midnight rendezvous with Dumas will be your downfall. With that, she turned on her heel and swept away, her silhouette framed by the neon glow of the entrance sign. Later, as Phyllis tucked back into her own car in the valet lane, she sensed another presence. Spectra had returned. Sally reappeared beside Billy, her expression drawn and unsettling. Their standoff erupted in harsh whispers and clipped retorts. Phyllis lingered at the edge of the doorway, listening as they traded threats veiled as polite warnings. You need to toughen up, Sally admonished Phyllis when she finally noticed her standing there. The world doesn't wait for anyone to cry. If you think you can stop me, you're as deluded as ever. Phyllis arched a brow, slipping her phone from beneath the folds of her silk scarf. You'll see how deluded I can be, she replied, her voice low and layered with promise. You'll realize too late that I always knew your every move. With a final, venom-laced glance at the pair. Sally's defiance flickering under the weight of her gaze, Phyllis turned away once more, phone clutched in her hand like a silent verdict. Driving home through the maze of nighttime streets, Phyllis replayed every word she had read, every secret she had discovered. Dumas's grudge loomed larger with each passing mile. She knew revenge could be a blade that cut both wielder and target, and she wondered how deeply Billy intended to plunge that blade into his own father's back. But she also knew the power she held. A single text message, a strategically leaked conversation, could dismantle this conspiracy before it began. In the quiet cocoon of her car, Phyllis allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. Billy and Sally had underestimated her. They had assumed that her maternal instincts would keep her at bay, that her concerns for her son's welfare would tame her protective fury. Instead, she had armed herself with proof of betrayal. She would use it not only to protect Victor Newman and the empire he built but to remind everyone in Genoa City that Phyllis Summers was never to be dismissed, that she was a force to be reckoned with. Tomorrow, she would confront Victor with the evidence. She would demand that he tighten his defenses and perhaps even that he reward her vigilance. She would expose the cracks in the Newman fortress and place herself firmly in the center of its defense. And if Billy believed he could betray his father without consequence, he would learn, too late, that the fiercest protector of the Newman legacy was not the patriarch himself but the woman who refused to let that legacy fall. As she pulled into her driveway and stepped out into the cool night air, Phyllis pressed her palm against the phone's glass screen, as though to reassure herself that the proof of their treachery was real. The shadows of the mansion's facade stretched long and commanding. She inhaled deeply, tasting the electric promise of retribution. In the war for Newman Enterprises, the lines had been drawn. Dumas had an enemy far more dangerous than Victor, far more relentless, and far more intimate. And it was only just beginning. Chelsea stepped into Adam's modern office suite with a mixture of exhilaration and lingering doubt, her heels clicking softly against the polished marble floor. Sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating minimalist furnishings and the imposing desk where Adam sat, his expression open but guarded. As she approached, her heart still raced with the thrill of possibility. Here was the opportunity she had been yearning for, to partner with a visionary, to play a role in something greater than herself. Yet her mind betrayed her ambitions, whispering reminders that this was, after all, Victor Newman's company, and that no matter how much talk there was of independence, the shadow of Newman Enterprises loomed large over them. Chelsea forced her shoulders back, squared her gaze, and allowed her eagerness to shine through as she greeted him, her voice bright with enthusiasm. "I'm so excited about the prospect of working with you, Adam," she began. "I nearly forgot for a moment that I'm also stepping into Victor's realm." Her words drifted between them like a challenge, an invitation for him to reassure her that the future held something different this time, something built on mutual respect rather than inherited power. Adam rose and gently closed the gleaming glass door behind them, the click of the latch echoing with finality. He motioned Chelsea to the plush leather chairs before his desk and offered her a warm smile that held both gratitude and resolve. "Chelsea," he said softly, "there are countless ways to innovate within the system without being bound by old hierarchies." His tone carried conviction, the kind that only true belief can muster. As she settled into the chair, she couldn't help but notice the subtle confidence in his posture. The way he leaned forward, elbows braced on his knees, as though connecting with her on a deeper level. Encouraged, Chelsea launched into a passionate monologue about her aspirations, to champion sustainable projects, to foster genuine human connections through philanthropy, and to channel her creative energies into initiatives that would leave a meaningful mark on the world. She spoke with fervor, hands gesturing in the air, her voice rising and falling as she painted vivid pictures of impact and legacy. Adam listened attentively, nodding, his expression both patient and approving. When she paused to catch her breath, he reached out and took her hand. "You are my eyes, my ears, and my heart in this journey," he said, his voice low with sincerity. "Together, we can accomplish extraordinary things." Her chest swelled with pride at his words, but the knot in her stomach refused to untangle. "I'm proud of how far you've come," she admitted, "and how you've changed since stepping out of your father's shadow. But I still worry that he controls every move you make." The confession hung between them, heavy and vulnerable. Adam's face softened with understanding. He stood and walked around the desk, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "That's never been the case," he assured her, his voice firm yet tender. "Father and I once shared ambitions, but the path I walk today is my own. I make decisions for myself, and I need you to trust that." Chelsea searched his eyes for truth, seeing only earnestness and a glimmer of relief that she had voiced her fears. In that moment, the tension that had gripped her heart began to loosen. She grasped his hand. "If you prove to me that this is truly your vision, your path, and not your father's, then I believe in us." He guided her back into the high-backed chair and crossed the room to open a sleek portfolio on his desk, revealing prototypes of branding materials, mock-ups of community outreach programs, and sketches of philanthropic blueprints, tangible evidence of his vision. Chelsea leaned forward, tracing her finger along the crisp lines, her doubts dissipating as each page confirmed his words. He looked at her, eyes bright. "Stay and see for yourself," he urged, "and if I revert to old ways, if I play the same games, then you have my word, you'll walk away." His promise reverberated through the spacious office, and Chelsea felt the weight of mistrust lift. She placed her hand over his across the portfolio. "I trust you, Adam. I want to build something real with you." Relief washed over him in a radiant smile, and he squeezed her hand gratefully. As Chelsea rose to leave, her mind buzzed with possibilities. Boardroom presentations that would spotlight grassroots initiatives, charity galas designed to uplift underserved communities, strategic alliances poised to redefine corporate responsibility. But beneath the excitement lay a protective resolve. She would be vigilant, an unwavering ally who would celebrate his triumphs but also call him out the moment she sensed a whisper of his father's influence. Adam noticed the shift in her posture, the thoughtful glint in her eyes, and he closed the portfolio. "Thank you for this chance," he said, his voice thick with gratitude. "I won't let you down." With that pledge, Chelsea felt a profound sense of partnership bloom between them, one forged not by bloodline or inheritance but by shared values and mutual respect. Walking down the corridor toward the elevator, Chelsea reflected on the conversation. She realized that true collaboration required both faith in the other person's integrity and the courage to hold them accountable. Adam's assurances, reinforced by concrete plans, had eased her fears, but she would never allow complacency to creep in. The legacy of Victor Newman was formidable, yet the future they envisioned belonged to them both. Together, they would navigate the complexities of power and ambition, always mindful of the promise they had made. To build a new chapter defined not by control but by innovation, empathy, and mutual trust. In that belief, Chelsea sensed the first stirrings of something profound, a partnership capable of transcending the past and shaping a brighter future for both their legacies.